Beautiful. And now let's start implementing the register user functionality on our front end. And we'll start with the entire setup where we have initial state in the app context. I want to set up user token and user location for the first two. The values will be null, and then user location will be equal to an empty string. Then in the actions.js, I want to create following actions: register user, begin, success, and error. Meaning it's going to be register user begin, register user success, and hopefully you see where I'm going with it. As far as the values, it's going to be equal to an exact same string value. So this is going to be my variable name, and then the value will be exactly the same, just set up as a string. And this is going to be the case for the rest of the actions. Then I want to set up the imports in the reducer as well as app context, both of them. And then in the app context, let's set up a structure for our function. The name will be register user. And it's going to be looking for one thing. It's going to be looking for the object where we'll have all the data about the user, meaning the one that is being provided in the register function. Name, email, as well as the password. 3 things. And for now, I just want to log it. That's it. Pretty straightforward. And then in the register.js, where I have the submit handler, right after the condition where I check for empty values, I want to set up a new object, current user. Like I said, it's going to be an object with these values. So essentially, this is what we'll be passing in the register function. And then I want to set up another condition where I'm checking for is member. Because if you recall, we have 2 options. The user is a member, or he or she wants to register. And like I said, eventually we'll set up that condition where I'll check the local register.js state value is member. And if it is a member, eventually we'll call login user, which we're going to set up in a second, meaning once we're done with the register. But if the user is not a member, if this is false, then we invoke register user. And what do we do here? Well, we pass in the current user. And lastly, in the register.js, what I want to do is use isLoading. So essentially, once the loading is true, which is going to be the case when we are in the middle of our fetch request, the submit button is going to be disabled. That's it. That's all we have to do. And in React, we can do that by using the disabled attribute. And if isLoading is true, which is again coming from our state, then the button will be disabled. And if it's not true, meaning if we're not loading, then it's not going to be disabled. And once we know what we're going to be doing, why don't we start in a dashboard where I want to remove this dummy code? There's really no use case for it right now. So let me just go here with everything clean. And then, I don't know, we might reuse the use effect. I'm not sure. And then let me navigate back to my app context. So that's the first thing that I want to do, is to add those values to my initial state. Now, what values am I talking about? I'm going to go with user null. Then I also want to add the token as null. And then lastly, I want to go with user location. And then I want to set that one up as a empty string. So those are my default values. Then we want to navigate to the actions over here. And then let's set up those 3 actions. So we're going to go with export const. And then let's go with register underscore user and then begin. Like I said, the value will be exactly the same as is my variable name. The only difference, it's going to be set up as a string. And then I'm going to go with my 2 cursors, copy and paste. And now we just want to remove, and we'll go with success. So this is going to be dispatched if we're successful. And then the last one will be if we have the error. Now let me save this one properly here. And now what I want to do is go to my reducer and then import that one. So right after this one, we're going to go with register user begin, register user success, and then register user error. And I don't know. I think I'm just going to copy and paste and then set it up in app context. I really don't see the difference. So let me navigate here. Again, we're looking for the actions, copy and paste. And now let's set up that structure for the function. Essentially, I want to set up that register user that is going to be looking for my user object. I'm going to go below my clear alert. And what I want to set up is const register user. That's the function name. It's going to be a sync because we'll make a fetch call. And then let's go with current user. So that's the object that we're going to be passing in. And for time being, since we're just setting everything up, we're going to go with current and then user. So now I'll take a look what I see in the console, correct? Now, it goes without saying that I do want to export that. So like I said, I'm not going to be including that step in the actual README because I find that self-explanatory. And then where I have the register, and as I said, this will be a little bit of an issue where, I cannot stand the fact that I have so many tabs open as well as so many files over here. So you'll see me probably a lot doing this where I clean out my tabs as well as the files that are open because, again, I'm just OCD that way. So let me go back to my client here and source. I'm looking for the pages, looking for register. Yes, I do want to add the README though, because that's going to be important. I might want to showcase some stuff here and there. So back in the register, what are we doing? Well, we already have pretty much all the imports. What we don't have is a register user, correct? So register user. And as a side note, you know what? I can navigate here to register just so I can see everything. And then, we have a bunch of warnings in the console. Don't worry about that one. Let's keep on scrolling. And like I said, once we're done checking whether one of the values is empty, and if that's the case, we invoke display alert. Now let's set up that user where I want to go with const and then current user, and that one is equal to what? Well, I do have here name, email, and password. So we pretty much don't need to do anything. We just say that there's going to be an object, and then these are going to be our properties. Name, email, and password. And then let's set up that condition. So if it is a member, then we'll invoke login, correct? And as a side note, you know what? I don't want to see those warnings. So I'm just going to uncheck it where I have the custom levels. And we can clearly see what we're looking for. Now back to our main topic. What do we want to do here? We want to check if the user is a member, then eventually we'll go with login user, something we haven't set up even on the server yet. So that is still coming up. So let's say here is member, and then for time being, another silly console log where I'm going to say already a member. Okay, beautiful. And then if it's not a case, then we'll go with else. And now I want to go with a register user, and let's pass in that current user. So if everything is correct, once I click on register, provide all the values, and then click on submit, we should see that user object in a console. And before we do that, let me just scroll down, look for my submit one, and then remember the attribute name was disabled, and that is equal to my is loading. So if it's going to be loading, it's going to be true. So we won't be able to click on a button, and you'll clearly see that once we make the fetch request. Just at the moment, we haven't set up any functionality in Reducer where we actually toggle the loading. So that is still coming up. And then if we're not loading, well, then we can use the button. And what is the default value for is loading? Well, that one is false, correct? So let me go to a register. Then let me add here John, and then John, gmail.com. And then let me provide some kind of password. And if everything is correct, once we click on submit, check it out. Now in the console, I see all of the values. Now, if you want to quickly test it out, is loading, well, just navigate to the big screen. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to look for localhost 3000. Then we're going to go for register. And once you're in the register page, simply go to the components. And what we can do in the app provider, we can toggle, correct? We can go with is loading, and then let's set it up as true. So what you'll notice right now is the fact that we cannot click on a button. So that's why there is no alert over here. because we even have the cursor displayed that we cannot click on a button. And the goal for this is following, where as we're fetching, I don't want the user to keep submitting the values and in return keep making those requests. So while we're still in the flight of our register or login request, user won't be able to click the button. We're done with register user setup. So now let's talk about the library we're going to use in order to make our fetch requests.